The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Monday and it's a very exciting day around here for a bunch of different reasons. Of course, if you've watched any other news this morning, it's all about the Oscars. And you might think to yourself, oh, I'm going to watch Autism Live. We're not going to talk about the Oscars. But guess what? We are going to talk about the Oscars a little bit today. And I'll fill you in on why and what it has to do with autism a little bit later. But it does. It's very exciting. And also in our building today, I know we've talked about this in the last 2 weeks, that we have 3 people in the building this morning doing a training with a lot of the upper staff at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders for ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy. We talk about it a lot when Dr. Doreen Granpeche is with us, and we've talked about it when Evelyn Gould is with us. It's really an amazing, I want to learn more about it, and we're going to find some time this week to get them into the studio to talk about it, but a really pivotal thing for parents to be able to do to help us deal with all the emotional things that we have to deal with so that we can show up and work with our children on the autism spectrum and be more productive. And that's really what we talk about here, is how can we be more productive and more efficient at helping an individual on the spectrum to reach their fullest potential. We will be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about lots of different things. We look at autism from a 360-degree perspective. What do we need to do to be able to help ourselves? What do we need to be able to do to help our children? How are we going to deal with the emotional end of it? How are we going to deal with the financial end of it? Everything from A to Z. But the entire show is meant to be interactive. We love and appreciate your comments, suggestions, questions, and even if you have something that you feel might be a criticism, we love it. Because our whole job here is to do the best that we can to provide you with information. So if we're not doing something right, you got to know I want to hear about it. All right, there are lots of different ways that you can get in touch with us. So Emily's going to scroll through some of the different ways that you can interact and that you can watch the show. But I want to remind you that there's only one way to watch us live, and that's at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you will see a desktop, and you will see that the show plays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week there. But for 2 hours, Monday through Friday, we are live. It's 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the United States, 10 a.m. to noon in Pacific Time, and you'll need to do the math if you live someplace else. But in any case, while we're live, there is an extra feature. You see a box there that says questions we're answering right now. You can put your cursor there, type, put anything you want there, hit enter, and it shows up magically right here on my screen. And you and I can be having a conversation, or you can have a conversation with any of our guests. It's really a wonderful thing. You don't have to log in. There is no credit card. There's no fee. We don't even get to know your name. Now, that's the good part of it. Totally anonymous, right? But if you want us to get back to you and you're using that feature, you will have to tell us how to get back to you. And know that when you hit enter, it shows up on my screen and I have the opportunity to take stuff out of it before I share it. So if you want to put your email address, you can, your phone number, whatever it is, I can take that out of it before I post it. And in that way, you can remain anonymous to everyone but us. And that's only if you want us to get back to you personally. Okay, I do like to remind all of you at the start of the show that I am not an expert in autism. I'm not an expert in autism therapies. I'm not an expert in autism legal issues or dietary issues or any of the wonderful things that we have opportunity to talk about with different experts here. But I am an autism mom. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He's now 9.5. And I am the lucky recipient of great parent interaction support. And my son is doing so well, and I do not kid myself that that is because I knew what I was doing. Oh, no, contraire. My son is doing so well because I was in the right place at the right time and heard the right advice. And I'm forever grateful for that. So I am here on a daily basis trying to pay that forward. It's a huge bill. I'll never get it paid. But I want to help you to hook up with the information that you need, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, or an individual who's on the spectrum yourself. If there's something you want to know, something you want to understand, you need help hooking up with a funding source, I hope you'll let us know and give me an opportunity to try to hook you up with the information that you need. It really is something that I deeply, deeply enjoy. So I know several times in the last week people have said, I hate to bother you. Bother me. You're not bothering me. All right, we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and try to make sense out of it. You know, when my son was diagnosed with autism, I was so overwhelmed. I was already underslept, and when I would go and meet with people and I would hear all these terms, I just felt so despondent. And I really didn't understand, and I was a little bitter. Let's be honest about it. Why couldn't they just talk in a way that I could understand? I will tell you that over the years, as I've grown to understand some of these terms, I now understand how much easier it is when everybody understands what's being said. If you understand the jargon, you can get that much further. We talk about being efficient and being effective. Making friends with the jargon is just part of that journey, and we can do it a little bit at a time and not overwhelm ourselves. So today's term is one that you're going to hear fairly early on. It's OT. And I love when we step into alphabet land, right? OT and APE and the IEP and the BIP. It can make you want to run screaming. But this is a good one, and let's shed a little light on it. We always give you an actual definition and then a working definition that's less specific, but maybe helps us to hone in on what it has to do with our individual selves or our individual children. So let's look at what our actual definition is, OT, which stands for occupational therapy. Now, you could walk around all day and say occupational therapy, but I guarantee you 6 months in, you're going to stop calling it that and start calling it OT because it's just that much quicker. And we need more time to do other things. So let's look at our definition here. Treatments and services that focus on enhancing participation in and performance of activities of daily living, education, work, leisure, play, and social participation. Now, I don't know about you, but when my son was diagnosed with autism at 2.5 and they started talking about the services that were available to me, OT was one of the first things they said. Oh, your child can get OT. And I said, what on earth is that? Occupational therapy. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, isn't occupational therapy where they help you to be able to do a skill for a job? Why are we doing this with a 2.5-year-old? And over the years, my sense of OT has grown and expanded. And this is one of the reasons why I want to talk about it today. Let's look at our working definition. Therapies that include, but are not limited to, hand and finger skills for self-care, like doing buttons, for toileting, you know, your child needs to be able to do the zipper, and for handwriting. Imagine when it comes time to sit down and for your child to write their name and go to school, all those different things. So strengthening those hand and finger skills so that they can be able to do those. Using technology. So the hand and finger skills for the technology, but also understanding how to use a mouse, how to be able to push the buttons on the iPad and understand the navigation of it. It isn't just the hand and finger skills, it's understanding how to use the device. Strengthening core muscles. You know, for a child who has had to deal with a lot of other issues with autism, and you know, it's a mixed bag and all of our kids are different, right? Their ability to sit up in the chair so that they can sit up strong enough to be able to write, that could be compromised. So we can work on that core muscle strength with an OT professional. Sensory issues. Whenever somebody is talking, of course, you can work on these in a lot of different ways, but this is one of the things that you could assign your OT person to work on. If your child is having difficulty with textures or with sounds or with lights, being able to sit in a room that's echoey or fluorescent lights, these are all kinds of things that you could be working on with an OT. How about coordination? That's another great thing that the OT could work on. Behavior management. This is not outside the scope of an OT. And job-related skills. Now, for a 2.5-year-old, what's their job-related skill? Well, part of their job-related skill at that point is to be acquiring information and acquiring language. So there's a social component also to OT, them being able to say hi and goodbye. It's endless. It really is. You notice it says not limited to these, but these are some of the things that we can think about and say, all right, how could this be useful to my child? How could this be useful to us as we're starting a program? OT is really an amazing thing, and a lot of schools will fund it without a big fight. I would encourage you not to turn down OT if somebody is offering it to you. Take it, run with it, be specific. Say to the OT person, what are we going to work on? How are we going to work on it? Could I add this? Are you willing to work on this? My child has difficulty turning a doorknob. Great. The OT can work on that. My child is having difficulty buttoning their pants. Great. Give that to the OT to work on. We can get much more traction the more of these things that we work on, set our kids up for success in other areas. And that's really what OT is about, setting our kids up for success in all the different things that they have to do in their life. Really beneficial. So OT, a good one to know. Occupational therapy, but let go of your old ideas about it and see all the different things that you can work on. We also like to start every morning with a question of the day, and you guys have been responding in force to our question today, and really thrilled to be able to talk about this. How old was your child when they were diagnosed? We know, and we talk about it all the time here on the show, that early intervention is so key. And that's going to mean different things to different people. And I know it's really the double-edged sword. So many of you feel like you've missed something because your child gets diagnosed later. But the important thing to remember is whatever your whatever age your child gets the diagnosis, that's when it's time to start digging in and getting all the support and getting that intervention. Early equals now, whatever age that is. But I'm thrilled that you guys are answering in force, and we'll take a look because it's a bigger spectrum than you might suspect of how old children are when they're diagnosed. And we always have a topic of the week that we like to share with you and that we like to focus all of our different elements of the week. And this week is no different. Our topic this week is early intervention. So very key. But again, when you hear the word early, don't think of having missed something. Early means now, not next week. And I know when your house is busy and you get this diagnosis and you got all these appointments to go to, it seems so overwhelming. But we'll hold hands through it. And you can write in and tell us what you need and what you're having trouble with. And especially when you interact on Facebook, you get the opportunity not only for us to interact with you, but all the other people who are there and watching to interact with you too. There is support. I always like to remind myself early on, I felt like we were climbing Mount Everest when my son was first diagnosed. And then I would look around and I would see other people and go, okay, they figured this out. There must be a way. I'm just going to keep moving. You know what Dory says in Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. And hang on, just keep swimming, but hang on to those around you. And I can tell you, if I could do this, then I know for sure that you can do this. But early intervention, early equals now, we must get started. So some of the things that we're going to talk about here today, it really is going to be a very exciting day today. Of course, it's Monday, so we always have our stress tip on Monday. Very excited about that. We always do ABA basics on Monday, and it's so thrilling. And this is going to be a semi-regular thing. Every other Monday, we are going to be joined by author Monica Holloway. If you have not read Cowboy and Wills yet, I don't know what to do with you. You need to read it. It's really, and I say this all the time, it is my favorite book that has to do with autism. It is not one of those dry tomes that we get where we read about every, a peptide of gluten and what that looks like under a microscope. This is a memoir, and it is a beautiful, you will laugh, you will cry. There are only 5 books that I have ever read that I laughed out loud while reading, and Cowboy and Wills is one of them. So thrilled that we're going to have Monica Holloway with us and talking about, because her son is a teenager now. So we're going to talk about some of the things that she's up to, and a little bit later in the program, we're going to have Monica talk about her evening last night, because yes, she was at the Oscars. It's just, I can't wait to hear all about it. A real, somebody who was actually at the event and with a purpose, and I'll let her reveal what the purpose was, but so thrilling to have her. So we are going to take just a little break here, and when we come back, Monica Holloway will be with us. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he? What is he doing? Is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting 2 battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life. These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest right now is Monica Holloway. I'm so thrilled to have you here with us.
Thank you, Shannon.
And I was mentioning before that you are the author of Cowboy and Wills, and it is a wonderful, wonderful book. And I won't give anything away, but it's a book that everybody has to read. And you talk about your son, Wills, who is on the autism spectrum.
Right.
And he was much younger at that point.
Yes, yes.
And his adventures with a dog. But again, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be inspired. It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Oh, thank you, Shannon.
I do remember the first time I sat down and I read like the first page and I said, oh my goodness, this is not what I expected. This is beautiful writing. You really are a beautiful, beautiful writer.
Well, thank you.
So, and I say that behind your back all the time. So truly, there were people here the other day and I said, have you read Cowboy and Wills? So thrilled to have you here with us because of that. But you have written many other things, and you have so much more to say to us in the coming weeks because you are now the mother of a teenager.
A teenager. a teenager who's 6'4".
Yes.
6'4".
We got to interview him for the first time right around the holidays. I think it was like the day before. Was it New Year's Eve or was it the day before?
New Year's Eve. Exactly right, because we were leaving on a plane the next day.
And he took us out into the field so that he could hit some baseballs, and just a lovely young man. Can I tell you, you've done such a beautiful job.
Oh, I feel like, you know what, he did a good job with me, really, in the end, because like you said in your first segment here, you can't know.
Yeah.
You can't know, but you can do the best you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but he really, he's quite something. Our kids are, as you guys all know, amazing.
He is, but he's remarkable. He's I think of him as a gentle giant. He's very tall.
Yes.
But just the most gentle and loves animals.
Yeah.
What's the count right now in your home?
Oh my gosh, we have 50. That's too many. Hang on. We're probably down to 32 or 34 fish. So that pumps it up and makes it sound like more. And then we have 2 guinea pigs.
Right.
2 rabbits that he rescued, bunny rabbits, and then 2 golden retrievers, and 3. Now we're down to 2 hermit crabs as of yesterday.
Oh, no.
That's okay.
And amongst everything else that was going on yesterday, you had a hermit crab pass away?
We had a hermit crab passing.
I'm very sorry to hear that. But I do want to commend you and have you talk just briefly about the fact that you started a campaign after Sandy Hook.
Yes.
And so tell us what the campaign is and why you were moved to do this.
Well, as everybody realizes, I'm sure, and I mean not realizes, but feels like I felt that day, I had been in a therapy session, so with Wills, and I did not know what had happened. And I came out, I took Wills to school. I was driving to another appointment, and my husband Michael called and said, oh my gosh, I just want to hear your voice after what happened in Connecticut. Now, I lived in Connecticut for many years, and I didn't live in Newtown, but I lived in Darien, so it's not that far from there. But it doesn't matter where I lived. It doesn't matter where any of us lived. All over the world, it was so shocking. I've never been so immediately devastated by something that I wasn't just personally and immediately involved in.
Yeah.
So I pulled over, and I was very pale, and I just kept thinking that this couldn't be. And I thought that this was, and it was, like the worst news that anybody, that any of us could understand, that our children had been shot. And then the second punch came later that day when they started saying that this young man, the shooter, was on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And that he was autistic. And then I literally turned on the radio, and I can't even tell you what station it was. That's how numbed out I was by what this person said. So I wish I knew which channel it was so I could call them and educate them. But it was either a guest or a host, and I don't know, said, maybe people with autism should be institutionalized. And this is a person that doesn't know about autism. It's not a person, it's probably not a mean, horrible, cruel person.
Right.
But I literally pulled over again, and I thought, oh no, this cannot be.
Right.
So I immediately called my publicist, Jess Block, who's also just an incredibly close friend and family member, I would say, of mine. And she has a son, Royce, who's on the spectrum. And I said to her, we have to do something right now. But it's funny because she was already calling me. So we like crossed, left each other messages, and then got in touch. And it was really, I said, I want our pictures up. And I want them to know, like, we are the face of autism. And they had that picture of the shooter. I never say his name.
I don't either.
I never say his name. Okay. That's like a crazy looking picture of this guy. And actually, Wills was the one, he got home from school and he was so I started to say shooken up. He was shooken up. But understandably so, he was devastated by what had happened, and he hadn't known yet that they were talking about autism. So he was going on Christmas break, and it was a very lucky thing that he went on Christmas break then, because I could shield him a little, but then it came time where I had to sort of say, you know what, you're going to hear this. And so a couple of days went by when I finally told him, and right away he said, I want to say something. I want to get out there. And that's when we talked to you, and we got Wills on the internet, and we got his picture and my picture out there saying, you know, and like he said on your show, on your interview, you know, think of me when you think of autism. Don't think of that. And autism doesn't cause violence. Which it doesn't. And so that's how Faces of Autism got started. And then we wanted people to send their faces of autism in, and all these beautiful pictures of all of you and your families and children and grandchildren and cousins and neighbors. And it just feels like we're strong. You know, when Wills was little, I felt very isolated, as I know probably some of you do. And I hope if you feel isolated, that you listen to this show and you listen to us and you join us on here and you find us, because we're strong. The autism community is large and strong.
And we survived. I don't know about you, but I was saying earlier, I didn't feel like I was going to in the beginning.
Oh my goodness.
But I looked at people like you, and I knew that you had survived. So if you had, then I could follow in your footsteps, and so many other people as well. And I do think that it's funny when I go to conferences now, and I tend to meet moms who have children that are age 7 and up. That tends to be the vast majority. There are some that are younger, but it's because we're in a place now where somebody can walk in our footsteps. You know, and that's a powerful place to be in. If you had told me when my son was 3 that I would feel this way now, I wouldn't have believed you.
Oh my goodness. No, I would not have felt that way either. I would never have said I'd write a book about it. Never thought that I'd be out there speaking about it. Probably would have wanted to, but I wouldn't have even known what to say. I wouldn't have any idea what to say. I was in such a lost place. I wasn't educated about autism, and you can't be. You can't really be educated about parenting. You have to educate yourself, get yourself educated, and you know, that's what people are doing. And the good news is that now, as opposed to, my son is 15 now, he's almost 16. His 16th birthday is in May, so we have a big, you know, a nice little baseball birthday I'll tell you about later coming up for him. But yeah, when he was diagnosed at 3, but we had him in therapy at 18 months. And that wasn't that long ago, but there wasn't that as much out on autism even then. So hopefully if you have younger kids or even adult kids or whoever, you know, if you're autistic yourself, I think there's a lot more resources now. And I want to reach out. I know you're obviously reaching out. I want to reach both behind me and forward, because I'm reading and watching and talking to everyone that has college-age, you know, children or relatives or friends. I want to know what the adult scene looks like now that my son is turning 16, and then I'm happy and want to talk very much about, you know, birth till now, so that I can help or I can learn more. I mean, already there's so much I don't know about the little ones. Because it's coming up.
It moves so fast now. But yes, and this is why I say we all hold hands and we'll all get through this together. But I want to ask you about, how do people participate and take back the face of autism? How can they send it a picture? It's on your Facebook.
It's on Facebook, Cowboy and Wills. It's an ampersand, Cowboy and Wills. I think either way, and or ampersand. Go on there and post your picture, and then write a little story. It can be 3 lines or 1 line, or if you want to, you can also just anonymously put it up there, and just let us know that that's the face, that is your face of autism. And then we're displaying all of those for everyone to see, so that we're just creating this community. And it's gone sort of, I mean, we even have people in Australia that are posting now, so that's really exciting.
It's around the world. And it is a wonderful thing. And I know a lot of people, after those initial first couple of days, where the language about autism was so ignorant, and then it cleaned up.
Yes, it did.
It did clean up,
and people
that
went
was
back
positive.
and corrected themselves too.
But I always think, it's like when in the play Doubt, they talk about releasing the feathers from a pillow.
Yes.
And the feathers go everywhere, and you can go around and collect. You can collect as many of them as you can, but you're never going to get all of them back.
Right.
And a lot of people have said to me, but don't you think, this discussion, it moved off of that? Don't you think you can let it go? And I, as an autism mom, say no.
Right.
We need to keep making sure that we're fighting against ignorance all the time. And one way to do that is to share your pictures on this site.
Yes.
Go to Cowboy and Wills on Facebook.
And your stories, your pictures
yes.
and your stories. But those faces, really, you're right.
Yes.
That's what we decided too, that our faces almost mean more than anything. Because I'm you, and you are me, and I'm you, and you're me, and we're just people, and they're just people there. I mean, do you even say they are just people? I mean, all of us are people, whether you're on the spectrum or, we all have something. Let's just face that right now. As I deal with my OCD, I'm like trying to get my hair smoothed out. So I think that's what I want most for everybody, is not just, faces of autism, but also like, we're all neighbors, we're all family, and we're doing the best we can, and we need to all support each other. Clearly, there was something else wrong with the shooter, and it's not. I don't know. I guess he probably was on the spectrum. I'm not debating that. It's just that that's not what caused the violence.
Exactly, and that. There's a certain amount of fear that came with this across the board, whether it had to do with autism or something else, and important that we all learn and grow.
And I was surprised. That's it. That's exactly right. I was very surprised, actually. Even Good Morning America, I was surprised that they were saying, well, and they say he's on the spectrum, but they didn't explain more than that first day. And I thought they're going to come back to this, and they didn't go back to the autism subject, but they did the next day. The next day they brought in somebody, and they were very thorough, and I was glad. But I have to say, I got so many questions, and I'm from the Midwest, and I'm from Indiana, and I had a lot of just wonderful friends that I grew up with there, and this is a very small community that I grew up in, just a very tight-knit family-oriented place, and they were not afraid to ask me questions, very specific questions, because they didn't know. And I really can't tell you how much I appreciated that, because I just assumed they understood. And I'm not talking about everybody. There are a lot of people do understand about autism, but the people that didn't felt free to ask me. And I want people to know, too, I will never be offended by a question about autism. You can ask me anything. I had those same questions, whether they're awkward or uncomfortable. Please ask them if you don't know, and let me ask you. Because there's so much I don't know.
Absolutely. It's important to ask the questions. And I know one of the things that I saw in a news report fairly early on was they termed it a mysterious illness. That he was suffering from a mysterious illness called Asperger's, and I went mysterious. Wow. And then
now
in
really 2012, that was 2012, really?
Yeah, you see how much work we have to do still. It exhausts me a little bit, I will say, but it also lights a fire. Okay, well, so we have work to do here.
And it scared me. My son is, we've mainstreamed him this year into a high school at New Roads, and they have a spectrum program there that he's in. So he's on the spectrum. He has Asperger's, and he was high-functioning autistic, and now he's moved into having an Asperger's diagnosis, which is just, a hair's difference, I guess. But he's much more high-functioning now. He's doing very well, but he needs that support of the spectrum program. So the first thing I did was I went to school, and they were on break, but the head of school was there, and I sat down and I said, how are we going to, you have a spectrum program with these children, and they're going to come back into this school. How are you guys going to deal with this? And New Roads is such an open, it's a very gentle, interesting, amazing place. And the head of school said, I don't think there's going to be a problem because the kids are going to have a dialogue. And I thought, really? And they did. They did.
Isn't that amazing?
And the spectrum kids felt very comfortable talking about it. So that is the kind of environment that Wills is in, and I think that that says something about 2012.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All thrilling, and we're so glad that we're going to have you come every other Monday. And we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we've asked Monica to share with us because she was at the Oscars last night, and she was there for a very specific reason, but we'll let her tell you all of that after these messages. Stick with us. Monica Holloway is a critically acclaimed author, speaker, and activist. She is also an autism mom. Her son Wills was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Now, at the age of 15, Wills is a high school freshman, attending a mainstream school.
I'm in a brand new school. I'm in a great school that I love, and I'm really happy there. I made friends pretty quickly on the first day, and something interesting happened to me on the first day.
Tell me.
We were doing an art project with fabric markers, and there was a little label on it that said, "Squeeze for best results."
Okay.
And so I squeezed it and it exploded all over the people at my table.
Oh no!
And we were all covered in little blue dots.
I asked Wills how he describes autism to people.
I say that I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a slight form of autism. It doesn't make you any different. It really doesn't. It's just there, and it just kind of makes you who you are.
I asked Wills what he thought of the Sandy Hook shooter's actions being linked to autism.
Please, just don't be scared of autism. If somebody has autism, don't be scared of them. Chances are they're not violent. They're just like you or me.
Monica is a proud mom with good cause. I asked her to describe Wills in 5 words.
Generous, curious, funny, sensitive, loving.
We had a chance to talk about the Sandy Hook massacre and how Monica heard the news.
On Friday, when the shooting happened in Connecticut, I was in my car, and my husband Michael called to tell me what had happened. And I was in a state of shock, as I think we all were, but that many children. And I felt, I guess a mind can't take in that kind of information without feeling nauseous. I felt it go from here all the way down my body. I started calling everybody I knew to tell them I loved them, and I was thinking about them, and I just wanted to be with the people that I knew. I started hearing more and more information come on the news about this shooter having Asperger's or being autistic. And then I started hearing things about, well, does autism cause violence? And I was in a whole other level of shock. Never in a million years would I think that somebody might associate us and my son's face with the face of violence just because he has Asperger's. And I've seen bad days and good days, and that's what kills me, is like there was not a day bad enough to ever make me think that he or any of his friends could ever be violent. The only thing that made me even feel a little bit better, to do something to help educate. And so we've started a campaign on my Facebook page, Cowboy and Wills. It's called I Am the Face of Autism. And please post a picture of yourself. It can be your child, your friend with autism. Let's put these beautiful faces of these people with autism on to wipe out the face of this murderer. Let's put our faces in front of his.
Welcome back. We're here with Monica Holloway, author of Cowboy and Wills, and extraordinary autism mom. We were talking about the fact that her teenager is on the spectrum, and you can read about that in Cowboy and Wills. You have other books out as well. And there's Riding in Cars with Dead People?
No.
Is that what the name of it is? Have I gotten it wrong?
You're so close. Driving with Dead People.
Driving with Dead People.
It sounds very morbid, and some of it is, but it's actually funny and dark at the same time. But it's nothing about autism. I mean, that's my first book.
But you're a beautiful writer. I need to read, and you have another one, or another one you're working on?
Yeah, one that's coming out called, it's called There Goes Perfect.
Oh,
and you can imagine, it's a little bit of everything.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So.
Well, we had a question that came in, and then we'll come back and talk about the family sense of humor, because you all have a great sense of humor in your family. Okay, somebody wrote in and said, "Hi, Shannon, I have a question for your guest. Could she share about the battles she faced in her son's education? Did she have to fight for mainstreaming? And thank you so much."
Right. I mean, this is something I deal with in the book quite a bit, is trying to get Wills just into kindergarten. And I know that people, especially in New York and LA, and I don't know about Chicago, but some of the big cities, or Washington probably too, and San Francisco, I don't know, but they talk about when you have your baby, like, where are they going to go to preschool?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? And I'm like, come on. Like, I never went to preschool. I went to kindergarten in a church basement, you know? I mean, it was like, what are you talking about? But then I realized very early on that he was going to need very specific help, and it was going to be difficult to find him a school. So finding him an elementary school was very, very hard. And without going on and on about it, I wish I could. And can they get in touch with me through?
Yes.
Okay. If you want, if the person that wrote the question wants to get a hold of me, I would be so happy to personally type you a message in return, because it's a little bit of a long story about how we got him in. But basically, we applied everywhere. We did not get in anywhere. We were waitlisted at one place. We were trying to move to Santa Monica at the time, and we found this amazing school called the Children's Community School. It's in Van Nuys, and this director, whose name is Neil Wrightson, he told me straight up, he said, I don't think that we can accommodate Wills, but if you want to try, I'm game to try. I don't know a lot about autism. Would you like to teach me about autism? And he had waitlisted us first.
Yeah.
And so when he called me, I couldn't believe that that's what he was saying, because we felt like I was going to homeschool Wills, and I can't do math. I mean, I'm just like, I was horrified for all of us, because I couldn't separate from him anyway, which he needed me to do. And now I actually made a joke in the book, which I made to everybody, which was I was going to get a trailer and pull it up outside of Children's Community School and wave to them every morning and be like, I'm homeschooling my child, thanks for not taking him. And then just go to all the schools that had rejected us with my trailer. But he did get in. It was horrific in the beginning. Wills rocked and didn't play with the other children, and he cried every day. He wouldn't eat. He couldn't use a public bathroom. It was really tough. And we got him a shadow, Lynn Kuratomi, and it turned out she was a parent of a 6th grader there. And actually, he was in 5th grade when Wills started. And she ended up being the most spectacular person for him and for me. And Wills would cry at music class and hold his ears and rock, and she really took care of that. Meanwhile, I'm running around the school looking in the window and trying to help him. She's like, Mom, go home. And we weren't even sure that first year if he was going to make it into the mainstream school, and it was just a try. And it wasn't so much I wanted him in a mainstream school, it was that we felt that if he could be in a mainstream school, he could model those children. Yeah. Now, if we didn't think he could do that, I would never have put him in a mainstream school. But as it turned out, and I'll make this quick, in 4th grade, as Neil Wrightson had predicted, he said, things start to change around 4th and 5th grade socially and academically. Wills fell behind a bit. The children were all wonderful to him and had known him since kindergarten, but the social interaction was more sophisticated. The jokes Wills didn't understand so much, and we started looking for a more specific school, and a school that dealt specifically with some of his disabilities in terms of learning. Mm-hmm. And he ended up at the Frostig School in Pasadena. And at first, it was hard for us because it felt like a setback. And after his first day, I knew it was anything but a setback. And I took his golden retriever. He had a new golden retriever. Now she's older. And we waited outside the school for him to come out the front door. And he came out with a huge smile. And he said, everyone in there is just like me. Mm. And I wondered, did I wait too long, or is this? And he's had the most wonderful career and time there, and socially is a different person. So school is tough. Very important that you find the right one. And then Frostig actually said that we don't have anything more to offer him academically. He has to be mainstreamed. And then we reluctantly looked for a school for high school because we were it was hard to leave that community. But they had
gotten him ready for that.
He would be a different person today. I would be a different person today, but he would... I don't know. He's a great person, but he's a confident person now. Mm-hmm. And I think without Frostig, I can't say enough about that school. If you have a child in the Los Angeles area, get a hold of the Frostig School, because they have a lot of financial aid, and kids come from Moore Park. I mean, they come from everywhere on buses, mm-hmm. And it changed Will's life.
Interesting.
Yes.
Really great. Okay.
And they do kindergarten through 12.
And if you're not in the Los Angeles area and you want to talk to Monica more about what the process was,
Yes.
first of all, I would encourage you to read Cowboy and Will so
It's
that
all
you
in
have
there.
a reference for the beginning years. And some of it is very funny. I still think of when you had somebody from the school coming to the house. There's a very funny. Someday there needs to be a movie, especially that scene. Yes, we use the expression "swirly" in our house because of the book. In any case, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to read the book. And then you can also get a hold of Monica via her Facebook page. You can write to her and on the Cowboy and Will's Facebook page. Okay, I think we should take one more break, and then if you're willing to stay, I'm keeping you much longer than I said I was going to, but we have to talk about the Oscars. Everybody else was talking about the Oscars today, and we have, of all the days to have you here, the day after you've been to the Oscars, we must discuss it.
We might as well.
So, all right, stick with us. We'll be right back.
Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change, one little minor change, to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the health care plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the health care benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign the petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon. What you're gonna do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're gonna grab one end and then twist it, and then take the two ends and join them together, and then tape it together. And then I'm gonna flip it around and take another piece of tape. And what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
With ABA.
The possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
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 the possibilities are infinite. With ABA,
The possibilities are infinite. Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio right now is Monica Holloway, and I'll just tell you, we're just having way too much fun. Because you're so delightful, and there is a family sense of humor. Humor is kind of the family business in a roundabout way, besides writing.
Oh, yes, yes.
And you had reason to be at the Oscars last night. Tell us why.
My husband was on the team for the nominated Oscar short for The Simpsons, The Longest Daycare. So that was exciting.
Very exciting. So the last few weeks you've been going to parties and things for the Oscars. You've really done the tour.
We've really done the tour. Michael, who's my husband especially, has done the tour, and it's just exciting. He actually is a television writer, and grew up like watching the Emmys and watching the Golden Globes and watching the Oscars, and because he's in television and he really has, he's worked on the Simpsons movie a bit, but to be nominated for an Oscar this year none of us could believe it. I mean, none of anybody on The Simpsons. I mean, we were all just completely floored. So it was one of those little gifts from the gods that's just like, wow, you're going to the Oscars. And, and he didn't actually have a ticket because the main nominee was David Silverman, who directed it. So we weren't even sure that Michael was going to get in until Tuesday of this week.
Really?
We knew he was going to the parties. We knew we were going to the parties, and we knew which parties we were invited to, and the Big Fox party, and his agent's party, CAA, and the Motion Picture Academy. So we had a lot of different parties, or he did, during the week too. I was invited to all of them, but he was. So when I was driving, and he said, well, I got some interesting news today. And I said, really? What happened? And he goes, well, I got one ticket to the Oscars. But he was reluctant because he got one ticket. And I said, that's fantastic. You've got to go. And he's like, I'm not going without you. And I said, Yes, you are going without me. And so we weren't sure I was even going to make it on the red carpet or anything, but it ended up being a great night. We took Michael early, so the car came and the limo came and picked us up, and I was in literally a sweatsuit, like, you know, a 102-year-old woman. And I had my hair done and my makeup, but I was in a sweatsuit, all one color, which I guess is bad. That's really bad. And Will's actually, my son Will's, like we said, who's 15, he was in basketball shorts and a T-shirt that said Tanked from the TV show. When I got out of the car to take pictures of Michael real quickly on the red carpet, he said that I had a big stain on the back of my white sweatpants from, we'd been to the beach earlier in the week, and I sat on beach tar apparently, but I didn't know it, and I had on white sweatpants. So not only was I in sweatpants, I had a stain. So he took a picture of that. So my red carpet picture is my bottom, which looks like this big, and it was white sweatpants with a tar stain. So that's how glamorous my life is. That's life with kids anyway.
Which we appreciate, because when you say, you know, my husband is a television writer, and when we went to the Oscars, it sounds like,
it's not what you think.
You're so removed from me, and then we hear the real story, and then you're just like the rest of us.
Yes, and I spent most of the Oscars riding around in the car with Wills.
Well, tell us about, so you had all your hair and makeup done because you were going to go to the parties, and you dropped your husband off in the limo, and then what did you and Wills go and do?
We went to Krispy Kreme Donuts in Burbank.
Because that's what you do. Because that's what you do.
And I had not had sugar. I went on a major diet, being a perimenopausal, which we don't have to talk about, much to my husband's relief.
We do talk about it here.
Okay, good. That's good for me.
Michael,
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to just keep talking about that. It is a reality. So I've had to come off of sugar because I was just, you know, I was getting large and sluggish. So yesterday, Will said, we have to go to Krispy Kreme. And I'm like, step on it! Go, go, go! Because I haven't had a Krispy Kreme donut in forever. So we have this great picture of the limo driver. He gets out, and we're in the drive-thru, but he puts his hands in the window, and he takes it out, and he hands the Krispy Kreme donut boxes to Wills, and Wills hands the money to him, and he hands it to the girl. And it was crazy. But it was, and then they were all, the Krispy Kreme people came to the window and said, "Are you guys going to the Oscars?" And here we were in sweatpants, but I had like really long fake eyelashes, and I was like, "Yes, eventually I'm going there." You know, my husband's there now.
And you know, I have to say, because we were at home really glamorously watching it on the couch with our phones tuned into Facebook, and you know, because we live in Los Angeles, and you know people, and sometimes you see things, and so I looking, and the pictures that I got that were coming in, there were a couple of pictures of your husband. And then there was a picture of Krispy Kreme donuts. And I said, I'm not following. I don't know what that has to do. And there literally is like this picture, I guess it was of them handing it into
the limo driver, Alex.
Which was hilarious. And we took a couple of pictures, if it's okay with you, that we're going to show that you had posted on Facebook yesterday, because you looked beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You really did. And so Emily will find those to put up so that we can see. But eventually you put on the dress.
Yes, I made it there. I went across the street to see I have these fabulous neighbors, Tina and Derek, and they were waiting all night for me to put my dress on. They're like, "Aren't you there yet? Haven't you left yet?" And so I finally ran over there, and I was like, "I'm going." And they came out on their porch, and they clapped, and they were just perfect neighbors, as they always are.
There you are. Look at how you are, just stunning. How beautiful you look there.
Thank
what a
you.
beautiful, beautiful dress. And there you are.
I'm doing the Angelina Jolie. I'm trying to. Believe me, I know I'm not Angelina Jolie, but I said to Michael, I'm going to try the leg thing and see. And so everybody said, "You're doing the leg Joe." That's what everybody said on Facebook, the leg Joe.
But absolutely. Now, was that at one of the parties, that picture?
Yeah, that actually was the Fox party.
Okay.
So it's at Luna in, and I bet you I got that name wrong when I said it. I got home at 4 a.m. So I'm just barely, Luna or Lura. It's, in Hollywood, and that was really fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you've gotten to meet some people because of your lives, but are you still starstruck by anybody?
The person I wanted to see the most, and we were at the Fox party, so Fox Searchlight did Lincoln.
Right.
I just loved Daniel Day-Lewis, and I loved him, and this is how old I am, My Beautiful Laundrette.
Oh, yeah.
when I saw that, I've always been sort of mad about him.
Yeah.
And, then I met my husband, 19 years ago, and I was mad about him, and I am mad about him. But then there's this little side thing of Daniel Day-Lewis, right, which we all have, and I know he has about somebody, I imagine. And I just wanted to see him so badly. And, I didn't get to see him last night.
Oh, that's a bummer.
And that's too bad. But if I hadn't been going to Krispy Kremes and Baja Fresh with Wills in my sweatsuit, maybe I would have seen him. But Michael didn't see him. He was going to get a picture for me, but he didn't.
Very fun.
But he's the one I wanted to see the most. But yeah, we're definitely starstruck. And the thing I like most about my husband, one of the many things, is he's been in this business for 19 years. Yeah, 19 years. He's from New Jersey, and he's a small town kid like me, and he's always wide-eyed and excited about his job and about the people that he sees, especially writers, and but actors too, and producers, and the team behind it. And it just kills me how, like yesterday, he was so excited. It was like the biggest Christmas day, as it would be for a lot of us. It was for me too, but for him, it's just, I appreciate the fact.
He's not above it.
He's so not above it. He can't believe, every year we're lucky enough to go to the Emmys so far. There'll be a year when we won't be, and so we know that. But, and he never says, I wish we didn't have to sit through this long thing. I wish we, he's always like, we got nominated for an Emmy, and he's so excited. And he goes to work pretty much like that. I have bad days, really bad days, and he has bad days, but not like that. He loves his job.
That's a wonderful thing. What a
so
great
that's
gift.
why these days, like yesterday, are super exciting.
Yeah.
It's so fun to support somebody like that. You can hear my voice is starting to be tired.
Well, you had a long night.
I'm yakking.
And you talk about in Cowboy and Wills, you talk about a little bit the fact that he's a writer and that, autism has an effect on both people in a couple. And you married to the right person because he stuck it out, and you stuck it out, and you stood by him. But you had some strife that came along because he was a writer. No sooner, the way I remember it in the book, and fill in if I'm wrong, is that Wills was diagnosed and your husband had been out of work for a while, which was a hardship. But then he got a job out of town.
Right.
And how do you deal with that?
Right. He actually had a job, but it was at a. He was doing the PJs with Eddie Murphy, and that had ended. So then he had this offer to go to Chicago to do the Joan Cusack show.
Which I loved, by the way.
Did you love that?
I loved that. Well, I love Joan Cusack, and I love Kyle Chandler, too.
Oh, he's a sweetie.
Oh, yes.
He's a sweetie. Yeah, they're great. And that took Michael to Chicago. And we thought that we made that decision as a family. Wills was 3, I'm going to get this wrong, Michael, 2.5. He was 2.5. And Will's therapist said, you know what, you can't move this child to Chicago away from his support team, because then he had a little team around him, and she was his mainstay, his therapist, who's his therapist to this day. And I told her, if she leaves us in adolescence and menopause, I'll kill her. It's like, not kill her, but she just don't leave us now in the hormonal urge. But she won't. She's amazing. And she said, you can't move this child. So next thing you know, I'm in LA alone with this child who's just been diagnosed, and my husband's in Chicago with a brand new job with Jim Brooks and Joan Cusack, and he's waited his whole life to have this career, and it's wonderful, but it was very uneven who was managing the stress of what. So he was really working to try to help us, and we knew we were going to need money to help Wills, and he and I were, we didn't have much money, and we just were used to not having much money, but all of a sudden we knew he needed to work. One of us needed to work, really work.
Yeah, but I love your story.
Yeah, we darn near separated.
I can only imagine, because it's a hard thing. I mean, we all know the statistics. I always say, my husband and I joke that someday we're going to come home and on our door will be a divorce decree. They'll just say, well, the percentages caught up with you, and so we just went ahead and decreed it, so you don't have to fill out the paperwork.
That is so
because you
funny.
hear, but the truth is, I've gotten to meet so many couples that are that much stronger. It doesn't mean that it's all easy and hearts and flowers and roses and it's like, woohoo, we get along all the time. But I do think, the couples that I meet, I see that we always had the thing, we had a statue a long time, but my son broke it in the middle of autism. But it was two people, because we were told to be in the shape of an A as a couple or to be in the shape of an H as a couple, but not to be, holding on to each other and when, in times of trouble to be an A and the rest of the time be an H. And so we had a couple that are standing there holding their hands. And of course, in the middle of autism, my son, when he was swiping things, it got busted. But it's always our sort of thing of, okay, we'll lean into each other when we need to.
I think we were just O's, like really far apart. I was all about autism, and Michael didn't want to know anything about autism. And truthfully, it hit him more personally than it did me in terms of, he had some traits that he thought he might be on the spectrum. He took it very personally. He recognized a lot of things in Will's that had been in him as a small child, and I didn't recognize any of it in me. I had a lot of other things going on, believe me. And so I think that it was just so difficult for both of us. And when I handled difficulty by research and jumping in and protecting Will's and never leaving his side and erring on black and white at our house, and we're trying to do the gray area. And Michael erred on the fact that he would make the money and back off, and he couldn't. He had to be involved, and then he did. He got on board, and boy did he. Yeah.
Well, it's a very familiar story, though, and I do think it's worthwhile to tell because I know there are those of you who are out there who your husband is not yet on board, and sometimes it's the reverse.
Yes.
I have a very good friend that she was the one who was not on board, and now she is in a huge, huge way. But she talks about that her husband had to sit her down and say, "Look, I need you to be with me on this." So it's very common for one person to have that reaction of, I'm going to go take care of something else because this is beyond me.
Right. And also, I think in terms of just family, getting on board with the autism or people, like friends and family, I remember when we were talking about, oh my gosh, we think that Will's has autism. They would say, no, he doesn't. Oh, he doesn't. He doesn't. What are you talking about? He doesn't have autism. And you're going through so much. And I think, when I think back to that, I remember how devastating that was, because then it made me think, am I crazy? I mean, it seems like, and then his therapist backed me up, but I was still not sure. And so for those of you that are getting a lot of different messages from family and friends, just hang tight with them. I don't think they're trying to be ignorant or mean, or, they're trying to say, it's all going to be okay. And you know what? For a while, it might not be okay. Right. And even now in my life with Will's and his life with me and Michael, there's plenty of times when it's not okay, but some of it has to do with autism, and a lot of it doesn't. Some of it's just
teenager, I would imagine.
Some of it's just him. Somebody said that teenagers are like walruses. Oh. Like they just sort of lounge around on the couch, and you can't get them to go anywhere, And Will's was always up and going, and so Will's keeps going out in terms of weight, and up and out and up, and so he went out right before Christmas, and now he's gone up and he's slimmed up, but he was going out and up, and in the out part, I couldn't move that child for anything. But he needed. He was walrusing. How funny. So.
It's
learning.
It's an adventure.
Learning.
It's always, learning and an adventure. But I'm so excited that you're going to be coming back every other Monday.
Oh, I'm so happy.
And you guys will have an opportunity to talk to Monica every other Monday, but every other Monday. I don't know. I'm borrowing these teeth today. I wasn't up till 4. I have no excuse. I got to go to bed at 10 o'clock. So I don't. But what a wonderful thing, and congratulations to you guys for a wonderful evening.
Oh, we should say, Michael did not win, but we had a great time.
And I think I said last week, I said that he'd already won, because I was feeling that.
We feel that way.
You were robbed. But
somebody said on Facebook, they said, "Here's to the losers." I was like, that's fine.
Yeah, well, that was the song they ended up on last night, was that they sang. But, if that's being a loser, being nominated.
She was doing, exactly.
Quality problem.
Quality problem. High-class problem.
High class.
I'll take it.
Fabulous. And so wonderful that you guys had the opportunity, and Will's enjoyed the ride in the limo.
And the donuts.
And the donuts.
And the donuts.
And the Baja.
But we couldn't take the dogs in the car, and that was upsetting to him.
Well,
the
of
Golden
course
Retriever.
It would be.
There you go.
There's got to be a limo company that allows dogs. Oprah travels. There must be limo companies that do. In any case,
Hair
thank
removal.
you so much for bringing us all this joy and
thanks for
and
having
wonder
me. I'm
this morning.
so happy to be here.
So thrilled to have you back in 2 weeks.
I'll be here.
All right. We are going to take a break and go to the A Word. This is the wonderful documentary that's being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, as he begins his early intensive behavioral intervention. Take a look.
He's a happy, fun kid, and he was a happy, fun kid when he was diagnosed too, and I don't think at the time we really understood that you can be happy, fun, and still have autism. He's sort of giving us a hint that we don't need to worry so much, that he'll conquer whatever it is that he's dealing with.
Uh-oh, that could be interesting. Oh no, the duck fell. You're okay.
It's okay, buddy. Daddy will hold it. Let's try again. Try again.
I know that it's very important to him, whether he knows it or not, that he has both of us in his corner. So for the dads, that's all I would say, is be in his corner, do the best you can, and if you screw up, just be involved. You're going to make mistakes, but just be involved. It's not going to go away, and quite frankly, you're way more valuable to helping him than you think you are in the beginning. There were times I thought I'm useless, and that's gone away.
He does when he sees doors and books. Knock, knock, knock. Ding dong, ding dong. Hello. Hello. Don't you? Hello. Who is it?
Hello.
Good night, friends. I'm sleepy too. Wake up. Wake up, but I'm sleepy. Wake up.
He's just really clever now. More creative when he's playing. He solves little issues or problems that get in his way, and he just smiles a lot while he's doing it, so we think he's enjoying it.
Yeah, there's a bubble to tell.
Oh my Oh my goodness, that was so impressive. Good job. We added a new program, Gaining Attention, because we've been noticing that he wants our attention, but he'll like throw things or doesn't know appropriately how to get your attention. So we're going to be teaching him to tap our shoulder as well as call our name when he wants our attention.
Twice.
This is Jessica's first attempt in teaching Jack Riley how to gain attention. At first, Jessica tempts Jack Riley with an item he wants, then prompts him the entire way so he can practice and learn an appropriate way to gain attention.
Look, do you want the fire truck? Look, that's what I have. Do you want it?
Yes.
Okay, do this, look. Say Jessica! Good job, try again, ready? Ready? Say Jessica! Say Jessica! Oh, what do you want? Oh, okay, here you go. There you go. Okay, do this.
As Jack Riley learns how to gain attention, Jessica's prompts will fade until he does it independently.
You want to try again?
Try again.
Okay. Yes? Yes? What do you want? Yeah, what do you want? Oh, there you go. That was very good, Jack. Yes? Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's good, mister. You're getting better at that. Then we also added a program called Inhibition, when mom or dad are doing things like getting the mail or getting things from the car. He's had episodes where he'll just run.
Wait.
Wait.
Stop. Wait. No, wait. Stop.
if this is as bad as it gets, and we've caught it, then we're great. I think what I didn't realize is that there's always going to be new things that he's going to encounter. There's always going to be new behaviors that he discovers, and that's part of being a kid as well as the autism.
No. Thank you.
This way.
We can go in this way.
That was The A Word, an amazing documentary series that starts with this young boy, Jack Riley, at a very early age. He's still in his 2s at this point, but you can be watching this whole series up until his 4th birthday. Is already videotaped and I believe up. So take a look, because it's so worthwhile to see the arc. And I always talk about the arc. But here's an example of a tiny arc. I don't know about you, but when my child was first diagnosed and I wanted to know how are we going to get from point A to point B, and sometimes when you see it depicted on television or you see a little video, even if you're in the skills program, they have a video showing what the lesson looks like, but they're showing you what the lesson looks like with compliance. And compliance is a very important aspect of making sure that the lesson works. In fact, somebody had written in about compliance, and we are going to cover compliance with Evelyn Gould next week, because, man, it's the secret to everything. If you have compliance, then you can do these lessons, and if you don't have compliance, then you're in a struggle and a war that you don't want to be in, and you're not being able to teach. But what I love about the A Word is that we get to see snippets, and this is a perfect example, this episode, because you get to see they're going to teach him how to appropriately gain attention. And it doesn't work the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the 4th time, or the 5th time. It's finally on the 6th trial that this child begins to get it. Now, does he have it forever? Has he mastered it on the 6th trial? No. But he does it the first time by himself without prompting on the 6th trial. Now, is that pretty good? That's pretty fabulous. This is a young man who's already learned compliance, who already has a structure in place that he understands there's something, and he's learning how to learn. He's already learned how to learn to some extent. So he's going to get it on the 6th trial. Does that mean that every kid is going to get it on the 6th trial? No. Are there some kids that are going to get it on the 100th trial? Yes. But it's interesting that earlier, when Monica Holloway was coming in, we were talking about, before we went on air, about teaching opportunities and how in order to be successful, we all, not talking about just our kids here, we all need more opportunities. And the more opportunities that we have to do something, if we're willing and if it's reinforcing enough, the more we will learn and the quicker that we will learn. So giving, not just teaching something once. It's one of the reasons why our kids tend to have difficulty with holidays, because you're doing it once and then you got to wait a whole other year for an opportunity. Right? So giving our kids lots and lots and lots of opportunities. It's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. But I wanted to take a second to talk about one of the things that the mom says in the voiceover in this clip. She says, well, we've caught it early. And our whole thing this week is talking about early intervention. She says, well, we've caught it early, and if this is as bad as it's ever going to get, then I'm glad we caught it early and we're going to progress. And she goes on to say, what I didn't know was that there's constantly going to be new things that come up. And I want to talk about all the truths that are in what she said, that they caught it early. And in terms of bad, it's so hard to quantify good and bad. I don't know about you, but I'm somebody who really likes to put a stamp on something. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is bad. Oh, this is fabulous. Oh, this is horrible, because I'm somebody who tends to talk in extremes, even if it isn't the case. I'm the queen of exaggeration. But when we talk about autism, if we get in there early, what happens, I think, and this happened with my son, and it's happening with Jack Riley, and I see this happen with a lot of other kids. You get the early intervention, and what happens is you get over a hump where your child gets functional communication, and so the level of despair when something goes wrong changes. You're still going to encounter problems, you're still going to encounter difficulties, but once you get over the hump and your child has the beginnings of understanding that when they communicate with you, you will listen, everything gets exponentially better. Yeah, there's going to be times when you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and sometimes you're going to take 6 steps back. But you never get back to that first place, which is, I don't know how to communicate with you, and you don't know how to communicate with me, and I don't know why you're doing what you're doing, and you don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. It never gets that bad again. I do talk about, and I remember very distinctly, and from time to time I go through my notes, excuse me, of when my child was first starting ABA, and something that because my child regressed into autism, so I constantly, anytime I saw anything that was a lost skill, because your child will lose skills, and sometimes they grow out of a skill area where they need new skills to be able to implement what they were doing before, it would take my breath away, and I would go, it's that thing again, he's going to regress. And some kids do. And if your child regresses greatly, time to go to the doctor. It's not something you let go, right? But normally, I know, what's normal anymore, right? We're on this journey, what's normal anymore? But I like to think of the pizza dough, that you stretch a pizza dough out and it has elasticity to it, and it's always going to snap back a little bit, but it doesn't snap back to the ball shape. If your pizza dough were to do that, you would know something was up. Right? If your child keeps returning back to the original state, you need to go to a medical doctor and have that looked at. But usually we'll have an expectation that there's going to be a little bit of snapback and then progress and a little bit more snapback. That's really what most of us are going to see most of the time. And as a child, I'm really learning that as a child progresses and the other children are progressing, the playing field changes. The rules change. Stop and consider that what's appropriate for a 7-year-old is not appropriate for a 14-year-old, right? So there's always more things to teach. And I'm told by my friends who have neurotypical children that they also go through that our kids are going to cycle through different behaviors. And we see that the Jack Riley cycle through this going and walking and waiting. And he even, a little later on in the series, because he doesn't like the way it's going, starts a new behavior. He starts biting, because he wants to be able to go and do what he does. But I love that on this series, we see that he starts to bite, and you see the parents are like, really? We thought we had this under control, and now he's biting? And very quickly, they get it under control using very specific consequences and antecedent strategies. So whatever the new things are that crop up, we have a tool belt, and that's really what's essential. But again, that first hump, getting over it, is worth everything. Absolutely worth everything. It really is a game changer. All right, we need to take a little bit of a break. We've got a question, comment that came in, and so much more to cover, including our stress tips, so stick with us. We'll be right back after this. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back. I've gotten behind on the questions because I was having such a good time with Monica Holloway. So I want to kind of catch up here a little bit. Somebody wrote in and said, "Hi Shannon, I will be going to an IEP soon concerning shortening the times or eliminating the times that my son goes to the resource room to work one-on-one with his special education teacher on his IEP goals, all academic related. He is mainstreamed and I believe that his social skill goals far outweigh his academic goals. To me, it seems that he would have more opportunities to work on social skills in the mainstream classroom with a full-time aide than one-on-one. Wish me luck as my husband and I try to accomplish this goal to help him with his greatest need to learn how to work in groups and work on social skills with peers." Okay. And this kind of goes hand in hand with one of the things that I want to talk about for the stress tips. So I want to kind of talk about them together. I'm going to show that question to everybody right now. You know what's interesting? I had a question about the same thing from the other side of the fence this weekend from somebody who their IEP doesn't to what the mom is feeling, and I don't want to put words, but it seems like what the mom is feeling is that there's only social goals and there aren't enough academic goals. And now in this case, the mom is saying, I think that the goals are all academic and they're not social. And it really brings home to me how important it is that we advocate for our kids. And I do believe in a parent's gut intuition on almost everything. There are some times when we do have to do things that are counterintuitive, right, to help our kids. But a lot of times when it's an overriding choice about what you want to have your child do or what you think they should be working on, a lot of times parent gut is absolutely dead on. And I want to do a cautionary statement first that while I believe that most people who spend their time working with kids in a school setting are well-intentioned, I do think that a lot of them are not as educated as they would like to be when it comes to our kids. And I hope that the tide is going to begin to change and people will get more training. And I want to encourage all of you, if you have somebody that you don't feel like is completely where they need to be training-wise, that give them the gift of Teacher Appreciation Week, give them an IBT certificate so they can go to Institute for Behavioral Training online and learn. I loved what Monica Monica Holloway was just saying about going to the school and the person who runs the school, the head of the school, saying, I don't think we're equipped. I don't think that we're trained, but if you want to come and educate me, I would find that exciting. Boy, that's criteria for somebody who's doing it right. Somebody who will admit, I don't know what I'm doing. That's always exciting to me because it means they're willing to learn. That's a good educator. There are some people who are overrun with too many kids and too many problems to be in that circumstance, and maybe, I don't know, academically or economically, it is what it is. But in any case, I think there's got to be a mix, right? If a school is saying, well, we've just given all academic goals to a child, primarily, maybe not necessarily all academic goals, but if they're only, the primary thing that they're focusing on is academic, and they're not attacking the social, well, we're not really giving a free, appropriate public education. And if we look up what appropriate is for public education and what the responsibility is, they have to provide it in the least restrictive environment in which the child can learn and in which the child is safe. And they must make sure that it is something that has far-reaching goals so that the child can succeed outside of school. And if you're not addressing that social component, you're not getting it done, right? Well, on the same token, if all of the goals are social and we don't have very many academic goals, or we don't have substantive academic goals, what are we doing? That's not a free, appropriate public education either. So finding that mix and presenting it to the team in that way to do real justice to the child, super duper important. So I applaud this parent that you're getting it done. It's that thing we talked about last week with Dr. Dorian Grampachet. Sometimes you have to get your dress dirty. Sometimes you have to wade into the mud and say to people, how about if we look at this a different way? And I talk honestly with you guys, but the truth is that when I'm at an IEP meeting, I believe in that old saying about you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, right? So being as nice as we can be and being as prepared as we can be, which is where I get into the stress tip of the week. That when we're talking about preparing for something that is stressful, and there are many things that we will have to prepare for across our lifetime that have to do with autism or don't have to do with autism, whether your child is having a medical procedure or waiting to hear back from somebody, getting them ready to do something on their own. There's a lot of stressful things that we need to prepare for. Well, the IEP can be one of the most stressful things that we prepare for. But oddly enough, you know who I'm going to quote is Patrick Stewart. Do you know who Patrick Stewart is? He is the actor who plays Jean-Luc Picard on Star Trek: The Next Generation and is in all those X-Men movies, and really, by all accounts, a very brilliant actor, was a Royal Shakespearean actor and a wonderful man. And I got to go to a workshop with him years and years and years ago. And one of the things that he talked about, he said, look, there's two kinds of preparation. There's the preparation when you really prepare yourself, and there's the preparation where you shoot yourself in the foot. And we all do this in life all the time. We sometimes we'll prepare in a really productive way, which means that you are relaxed and have had enough sleep and that you know what your goals are. And then there's the kind of preparation where we pace, where we don't get sleep, we don't treat ourselves nicely, we don't eat rightly, we walk around in a stress maze and constantly are in this space where we're thinking, but we're not in the moment. We don't want to walk into an IEP meeting that way. It's really important that into our preparation, we put being really well slept, being completely crystal clear mentally what our goals are. And my advice, this is what works for me, and if you can think of something else, I'd love to hear from other people, but I write a letter to the people at the meeting that I just read. So I'm reading a prepared statement and I have it organized in bullet points, and now I just edit it from year to year, but I put the bullet points in and say, here's what we need. Now, at an IEP meeting, we're always last to go, almost always. And so they'll say all of their stuff. And so when I get to the bullet points and I read it right into the tape recorder, some of it we've already agreed to by the time we got to meet. That's okay. It's okay to read it in. And some of it we don't agree on, but I don't have to mince words. It's already there. I put the language there before I heard somebody say something that offended me. So I'm not coming from a place of anger. It's something that I prepared at home days before and said, this is, and then I can go to sleep the night before and know I know what it is I want. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know what I want, and that's there on the piece of paper, so I can go to the meeting and I can listen. Instead of thinking, okay, it's going to be my turn and then I'm going to speak and what are they going to say, right? I don't have to worry about all of that because I'm just going to read it. That's all I'm going to do. So I get to listen and then I get to read. And I would encourage all of us, because it's IEP season, to be thinking in terms of that. How can I prepare myself to really be prepared? And that doesn't mean reading every book on autism. I know, I thought that once. And it doesn't mean exhausting yourself and coming up with every IEP goal that you can think of. It doesn't. It's great if you know a couple of IEP goals that you want to put in. That's great. I use skills to do that. Before, I would sit and crazy amount of research, not be prepared. You know what I'm saying? So be kind to yourself in your preparation and know that you're going in. And the thing that I always remind myself and that I always tell my husband to remind myself of as we're driving up to the school for the IEP is that I'm not there to fight, that I'm there to do right by my child and to ask everyone else to do right by my child. And by that moment in time, if I really had prepared, I know exactly what that looks like. I know exactly in bullet points that means that he's going to have goals that are social. He's going to have goals that are academic. He's going to be working with these people who care. And then I can know that the truth is on that piece of paper and I can relax. So I wish you great luck. And more importantly, I wish you true preparation where you are calm and you know what you're going in for and no one can take that away from you. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We are going to continue with some of these questions that are coming in after these breaks. So stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back. You're live on Autism Live, and I've got my friend Jennifer here. I'm so excited she's here to help me. She's got a son named Dylan. I got a son named Jeff. We got all sorts of allergy issues. And a lot of you say, what the heck can we do to eat breakfast that's not full of carbs?
And getting my son to eat vegetables.
Oh, yeah. This is a vegetable. So we're going to eat vegetables today. And so what we're making is a zucchini muffin. So let's go ahead and get started. So we just dumped in our zucchinis. You can start with less if you want to graduate your kid to actually eating healthy. We're going to do some eggs. And again, I use the organic cage-free eggs. So there's our eggs. I'm going to add in our oil. Again, I use a high heat oil, and the reason why I use a high heat oil, because when you bake, you want to make sure you're using an oil that doesn't disintegrate, because when oil gets too hot and it's not meant to get hot, it becomes toxic. So you got to be careful with your oils. So there goes our maple syrup, and again, organic maple syrup. What we're going to add next is cinnamon and our baking soda, baking powder to our mix. There's a lot of variations on flours. A lot of our kids are allergic to wheat, so there's a lot of things we can do to make this SCD, specific carbohydrate compliant, or just gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free. And flaxseed meal. Flaxseed meal is a great resource for extra fiber within the kids' diets. We're just going to turn on this fabulous, wonderful KitchenAid, and we're good. It's a great, great looking batter. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about baking, where almost everything is aluminum, and aluminum can be a problem for some kids, especially kids that can't methylate and take the toxins out with their body. But if you've got, like me, I've got muffin tins, so I have the ability to just simply put in some cupcake holders, and that actually holds that together if I want to freeze it. Hey, nice work. Those look good, but wait till you see them when they're done.
All right.
So go ahead and pull them out. Here, are the fabulous muffins. Now, if you've got a sensory kid that doesn't like vegetables, I can already spy the zucchini. Remember what I told you earlier. Dissolve that simply by peeling off the green layer, and then it will cook literally translucent. Such a nice golden brown. I love how the texture is. We know that the breakfast can be a challenge. This makes that process a whole lot easier for you and your family. I really appreciate all the feedback. We definitely want to hear from you for our next segment. If you'd like us to cook something or maybe make an old favorite and that's allergy-free, we can do that here on Autism Live. So give us your feedback. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page like everybody, facebook.com/autismlive. And also you can reach Taka on the Taka website at Taka Now. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us on Autism Live.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I want to answer some of these questions that you guys have been writing in. Somebody wrote in, my son was diagnosed when he was in his 3rd year of preschool at age 4. I'll never forget watching him through a two-way mirror go through hours of testing by a male stranger. He was so 4, but more like a 2-year-old in all developmental areas. It was the hardest thing that I have ever had to witness. There's so many things about that I want to talk about. First of all, this whole idea of when our children get tested by strangers. And I love the fact that you were watching through a two-way mirror. I will admit that I am the most paranoid person on the face of the earth, but I want to say this to all of you, that I never was comfortable with just letting my child walk away with somebody else that I had never met. And I guess that's a little bit interesting because I would always say, wait a second, where am I? And frequently people would say, well, you can't be in the room. And then I would say, well, where's the two-way mirror? Oh, well, do you need that? Yeah, I do. And sometimes people would be a little off-put by that, and I would generally apologize, right? But I never felt like I needed to. I don't think we ever need to apologize for being there and watching. And so I think it's great that you had the opportunity to be able to watch through a window. And I would say to all of you, if you feel like that's something that's important to you, please follow your instinct about that. I think that that's a really important thing to do. And I also like to say to everybody that as much as I loved and respected all of our therapists, I had a video camera so that I could watch and listen. And it made it so that our sessions were so much more productive because I learned, first of all, from what they said, and I could watch, but I also knew that my child was safe. And whenever a new therapist came through the door and started with me, one of the first things I would say, welcome to our home. By the way, I want to make you aware of the fact that we videotape and we listen to the session, so please be mindful of that. I know other people who prefer to keep that a secret. I think it's everybody's choice. My feeling was I want to make sure that they know, because I want to make sure that there's never a reason, right? I'm not trying to catch somebody doing something. I'm trying to prevent it, is my feeling about it. But it's very personal on to you. And again, people that I loved and trusted, but that's my child. So for me, I'm sure that I probably have offended some people in my lifetime. But you know what I find is that the people who are offended are people that ended up not being people I wanted to work with anyway. I think about my son's current still speech therapist, who is a wonderful, wonderful woman who is amazing in her field. And they would say, well, she's going to take him to this place and she's going to work with him. And I would say, well, I'm coming. And other people were like, and then that speech teacher, nope, that's fine. I said, I'll sit in the corner and I'll be quiet and and she was like, no, that's absolutely fine. And over the years that I have known this woman, eventually, I didn't need to be in the room anymore because she is like family to me now, in some ways more than family, you know what I'm saying? But that took years. And she didn't feel funny about it at all. She was like, no, absolutely. I have no problem with that. Come on in. So I don't think people are offended usually. I think the good people realize that you're paranoid for your child because it's a good thing to be. But also this whole idea of how hard it is when we see somebody testing our children and then getting the test results back from it. It's a really difficult thing to find out that your child is behind. And it doesn't matter whether you've been cognizant of it or whether you've been in denial. It's emotionally difficult. And some people, when they give you the results, will have a good bedside manner and will take note of that. Other people have done it so much that they kind of forget. And there's nothing wrong with admitting to people, you know, this is very emotional for me. To be told when your child is 4 that they're behaving at a 2-year-old level, whether it's you seeing it and recognizing it or somebody pointing it out to you, that's a hard thing. That's a really hard thing. But what I really want to salute is that even though it was hard, you are doing it. Because when you know where you are and you know where you need to get, you can begin to be really productive and your child starts to get the help that they need. And I'm imagining that this sounds like it was a while ago, so I'd love to know how old your child is now. And you know, an idea of where do you think, how, if you were 2 years behind then, do you still feel like you're 2 years behind, or do you feel like you're, you know, sometimes the gap can get bigger before it gets smaller, or do you feel like you're closer to being caught up? I know with my son, when he was first tested and we got back the results, he was about to be 3. When he went through the first battery with the school, where we got all the, well, this is where he is on this skill level, this is where so he was about to be 3, and there were some things that he did not have the skills of a 1-year-old. There were some things that he had the skills of, you know, about to be 2-year-old, and there was at least one thing that he had the skill of a 4-year-old, and he was not yet 3. And of course, I clung to that one thing that he was excelling at. But it was hard. It was hard. And one of the people who was sharing this with me was not cognizant of how hard it was and was just, you know, going on like she was telling me what the weather was going to be like in a week. Oh, and your child is at the 6-month-old age in this skill. No awareness whatsoever. It's very, very difficult. But you know, kudos to you because you're walking through that fire, and that's what we do for our kids. Okay. Somebody else wrote, I don't know if I shared that, but there it is. Somebody else wrote, hi, I saw that you had Julie Matthews on last week and it was great. Do you plan to have any other guests in the future to talk about certain diets? My son has a high oxalates and inflammation and wondering if I needed to go low oxalate or SCD, which is specific carbohydrate diet. Would love to hear what you did. Always helps to hear what worked for other people. Thanks. This is so amazing and it feels good to listen to it. Thank you. Okay, so to answer your first question, we're hoping to have Julie Matthews back on in March in the studio. We're trying to work that out. And yeah, we're starting to cover more stuff that's dietary. You've seen that we're doing the cooking segment on a more regular basis with Lisa Ackerman. Excuse me. And we're hoping to, because diet is a part of this journey, and whether it's that your child, you're just trying to be on a healthy diet, or there's something specific that you need to raise or lower for your child's well-being, because it is a part of this journey, and we do see that. It's a part of all of our journey. It's not just an autism thing, but there are some specific issues that come with some kids with autism. Now, for us, you know, it's interesting how the genesis of how everything came to us, because it was kind of backwards from how it is for other people. Once our son was diagnosed, and we got the diagnosis, we had applied for assistance and were waiting to be seen and heard about that, but we went to get a private diagnosis while we were waiting because we were in an HMO where we could and it wasn't going to cost us anything. It was really convenient that way. And so we were in the waiting period for getting services and to be evaluated by our state services. And we managed to get, we still had to wait quite a while, but we got our developmental pediatrician appointment and got the initial diagnosis. And then started some beginning early services like speech and OT. And it was when somebody was evaluating him for OT that I said, isn't there anything we could be doing right now? I want to run screaming with my hair on fire. Everybody's telling me about early intervention, early intervention, early intervention. Well, I've shown up. I want the early intervention, and you've got 62 hoops for me to jump through. Okay, I'm jumping through them as fast as I possibly can, but in the meantime, isn't there something that I could be doing? And this was before skills. This was before e-learning. You know, I couldn't, and there was a lot of stuff on the internet, but a lot of it was a mishmash, like it is now, and I didn't know what to do. And this person said, well, you know, there is that diet, but, you know, I don't think it works, but, you know, some people say that it works. And I said, there's a diet? What are you talking about? There's a diet? And she said, yeah, it's that gluten-free diet. And at that moment in time, here I am, a person who is allergic to wheat, and I didn't know what gluten was. Probably because I'm allergic to wheat. I just like I was like, gluten, isn't that something, you know, that you bake with? What is that? And she didn't say anything about casein. She just said gluten. So I went home and I had been Googling autism and autism treatment until my fingers were falling off. I didn't see anything about a gluten-free, casein-free diet, because when you put in autism treatment, it doesn't necessarily come up, or it certainly didn't then. And so I put in gluten-free diet and saw all this stuff. Which was pretty amazing to me, and I learned all about celiacs, and so we immediately took gluten out of his diet and saw a huge change. My child, who had lost virtually all of his language, was gaining 5 words a day. 5 labels a day, just overnight, pretty much. I mean, I would say by the second day of no gluten, I was in the grocery store with him, and I remember he was sitting in the little basket, and I had him strapped in, because if I turned my back for a second, he could get out, MacGyver the whole thing, and he'd jump out of the cart. He was very busy. And I would always be trying to show him vegetables, and he would be trying to get out. But we were in the grocery store 2 days after starting the diet, and I remember picking out some mushrooms and I just had been doing this for 2.5 years, but I would put them in the cart and say mushroom and hold it up to him. And for the first time since he had just started the descent into autism, he looked at it and said, mushroom. And I stopped and called my husband. And then I ran over and I got an apple and I said, apple. And he says, apple, right? And I went, wow, this is so cool. This is absolutely amazing to me. And so we were excited about that. But then I went back and did more research and found out, oh, you're supposed to get rid of the casein too to be on this diet. And I was encouraged, and we took out the milk, and we had a different child. We had a child who wasn't tantruming constantly and who appeared to suddenly be able to hear me when I was speaking to. It didn't make it so that he knew what I was talking about, but he could hear me, and before he tuned me out. So that was how we started diet-wise, and then we reached a point, and we started therapy, and we reached a point where I didn't see any more progress coming, and that was when we researched. My child was living on potatoes. At that point, everything he wanted was potatoes. We'd sit down for dinner, and he'd have a baked potato. And then for lunch, he'd have tater tots. And then we'd have French fries. And he would ask for fries, right? Tater-tots, right? He'd ask for them, and I would want to give them to him. But we had made such tremendous progress for like months, about a year. And then it seemed like we'd stalled. And I wanted more progress. So we started specific carbohydrate, but we only made it, I think, 28 days on specific carbohydrate, and my child went into ketosis. And you have to be very careful that you're working with a doctor when you're doing big dietary changes. And I could see that there was a change in him overnight. that he had so much yeast in his system that his breath would smell like brandy or bread, and he was having no bread. And that was for 29 days, but on the 29th day, there was a bad smell. Kids are not supposed to have bad breath. And we talked to our doctor, and he said, nope, your ketosis, time to put some brown rice in that diet. And we have not done the low oxalate, but we are constantly battling yeast. And so, you know, people look at my child's diet and says, oh, okay, he's GFCF with a modified Feingold, with a modified SCD, and we did that for a lot of years. We've introduced a lot of stuff back in his diet. He didn't have tomatoes for years. He didn't have grapes or apples for years. He didn't have potatoes for years. And I will be honest with you, we've been having potatoes now for a year, and I think that we have to soon take the potatoes out, and it's not going to go well. I'll have to distract him with other things. But I think we're a little bit more interested in potatoes than anything else. And so that's where we are. But I will tell you that when we do make small changes to his diet, we do see an effect. And an effect in behavior, an effect in his ability to concentrate, an effect in his ability to communicate with us and with the people around us. And that, to me, is a worthwhile thing to look at. But we will have more people in talking about diet, and we will have Julie back, and we're very excited about that. So thanks for writing in about that. And somebody just had asked before, I'd love to know how old your child is now, the one that you watched through the window. And they wrote, he just turned 11 yesterday. Happy birthday! And though he's continued to mature since that first diagnosis at age 4, he's still very delayed, probably emotionally, socially, and his communication is like a 5-year-old, but all other developmental areas caught up. Well, you know, and it's true that we have so many things to catch up on. There's like all the little dials, you know, and if you're caught up on a bunch of things, that's awesome. And I'm with you, though, that, you know, there's always more to do. And so we keep on plugging. And thank you for writing back about that. We have to take a break, and we have more stuff to talk about, and we have more questions when we come back. Stick with us.
Welcome back. For the month of February, I thought it'd be a great idea to work on an activity that would help your kiddos identify and label emotions. And to help me out today is my good friend, Jamie.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hey there, Jamie.
Hey, how can I help?
Well, the way you can help me out is that because you're a sock puppet, you can do things with your face that I cannot do.
No way.
Totally. The way you can do it is that, you know, you have interchangeable features, which means you can make super exaggerated faces, which makes it easier for kiddos to identify them and to label them.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I have a favor to ask you.
Yeah?
Can you help us out and show us some of your faces you can make?
Of course! Here we go!
Ooh, you look super mad.
I was super mad.
Can you show us another one?
Sure.
Ooh, you look super sad.
I was super sad.
All right, can you show us one more?
One more.
All right. You look super excited.
I was super excited.
I am too. You know why? Because I really want to show everyone how to make a little buddy like you. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are googly eyes, felt, a hot glue gun, imagination, scissors, Velcro, some heavy cardstock, and a clean sock. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to grab your sock. Hopefully it's not dirty and used. It's a clean one. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take your sock, fold it in half like so, and then you're going to take your scissors and cut down. The reason we're doing this is that we're going to make an area for the mouth. The next thing you want to do is you want to trim the inside a little bit, because if you don't, it's going to have an overbite. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit off, not much. Now that this guy is ready, I'm going to take a hard cardstock or note card or whatever you have that's a piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half, And what I'm going to do with this is going to be the inside of its mouth, the kind of reinforcement so you're able to move its mouth around. So I'm going to just cut it into an oval. And don't worry, if it's a little too big, you can always trim it. With this sock puppet project, the materials we're using, like the hot glue, is not something for children. So this is something you're going to be doing by yourself and then asking your child to join in once the puppet is ready to go. All right, now that I got that out of the way, let's start gluing. I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue it on the paper. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to put that in the inside of its mouth, and then I'm going to take the sock and then pull it over the edge and cover it with the glue. All right, so now that I have the bottom part done, I'm gonna do the same thing to the top. So now that we have this part assembled, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a piece of felt and we're gonna cover this area so you don't see all the scraggly stuff. So I have my piece of felt right here. I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm just gonna cut out a similar oval shape. And again, don't worry, if it's too big, you can always trim it after we glue it on. I'm gonna glue it inside. All right, now we got pretty much the base of the sock puppet. He's got a moving mouth, but wait, he's got no features. We gotta help him out with that. So what I'm gonna do is I have these pieces of Velcro that I bought that are already sticky on the back, which makes my life a lot easier. And I'm gonna peel this off and place it where I want his eyes. So one there and one there. And then I'm also gonna put them also along his mouth. And then if you want to get fancy, you can put some for his eyebrows as well. So now that I have this, we should be making some features for him.
I'm alive! Alive!
I had a great time with my buddy Jamie, and I hope you did too. Until next time, bye.
Bye. And don't forget to send us your photos at facebook.com/autismlive.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back. If there's one thing that autism has taught me is that you make a plan and then things change. And my plan was to come back and talk about some of the different things that you guys wrote on the question of the day. And then, of course, my Facebook on my computer won't work, so I'm trying to get it on the phone. But there were so many things that we wanted to talk about today, and let's see if I can get this or not. It's not coming up. Okay. Well, we move on with other things, and there were so many things that I wanted to talk about today, and one of them was about the progression of lessons. When we're teaching a child something, it's so important that we know a progression of how to teach something. This is a topic we talked about a lot last week, and we talked about the research that came out about pivotal response training and how effective it can be in teaching our kids things. It's so important that we vary our teaching methods, but that we also vary the lessons, that we don't get stuck someplace. And in particular, there was a mom who had written to us about IEP goals, and IEP goals having to do academic goals and having to do with language. And as I got to thinking about it and thinking about the progression in which we teach our children things, and remember that we want to teach labels, right? We want to be able to have a child recognize and say, what is this? And have them say mouse, right? That is them understanding how expressively to say mouse. But I also want to have the child be able to understand it receptively, so that when I say to the child, give me the mouse, the child gives me the mouse. That they understand mouse expressively and receptively. But then we're going to go on to have them tact. These are all of the verbal operants. So tacting would be that if they see the mouse someplace, that without anybody saying anything having to do with it, that they will spontaneously erupt into it's a mouse. And then be able to use it as an intraverbal, so that if I say, what can you use on the computer to be able to move your cursor someplace else, that they respond with mouse. Now that's going to be really very language intensive for a 3-year-old, right? Although some 3-year-olds are good with computers. But I want to do this with all of the labels that a child has. So it's not enough to just sit there and show a child a flashcard and say, what is it? And they say, it's a giraffe. right? That's one step in learning the labels of things. But in order to get to true conversation with a giraffe, we have to teach the child how to mand for the giraffe, that they request the giraffe. We have to teach them receptively to give us the giraffe. We have to teach the tacting. We have to teach the interverbal. And there's a huge series of lessons to do to go through that. Then, okay, great. Once we've done that and the child understands what a giraffe is and we've mastered the label for a giraffe, fabulous. What do we do with this now so that we build towards real conversation? And what happens is we start with labels of things that are in a child's existence, and then we move on to other things like actions, which are a little bit more difficult because by the very nature of it, it's something that's moving, it's in flux, and getting a picture of it and having the child identify it and be able to tact and interverbal, but we need to work on actions. And eventually we're going to get into back into objects, but we're going to put them in categories. I can remember when they were teaching my son in this way, and I thought, I just would sit there and I would go, are we ever going to get there? But I can remember one week in particular where they taught him all these labels and he was mastering all these labels, and I thought, well, this is great, but when is it going to turn into conversation? And I thought just miraculously the next week it was going to be sentences. But instead, the next week they went and they taught him all these different, like, you know, a guitar and a piano, all of these different things. And then suddenly they came in on Monday and they said, okay, these are musical instruments. So they taught him the category. And they would say, you know, they would put an object down, like a picture of an apple, and they go, what is it? It's a fruit. Oh, it's not just an apple, it's a fruit. And I would think to myself, isn't this going to confuse him? But it's how he learned. So he would put them in different categories. Then there were different things that were by the functions of things. So, you know, these are all motor vehicles. What, you know, they'd put down a car and they'd say, what is it? And he'd say, it's a car. And they'd say, what is a car? And he'd say, it's a motor vehicle. It was hilarious, and I loved his little speech about it, but, you know, I would think, where is this all going to go? And then they would go to attributes. And so I remember we had all the little play school animals that with the Noah's Ark animals. And so they would put 3 different animals down and they would say, which one has wings? And he would say, bird, bird has wings, right? And then they would do this about buildings, you know, which building has windows and which building has a garage, all these different attributes and features. But it was exhausting and it was exhaustive, but when they were done, what had happened was that my son was able to categorize these things in his brain, and he was able to have these conversations. And it started with 2 words, and then it went to 3 words, and then it went to 5 words. But that's how they got my son to be able to say, use a mouse to do this on the computer. And if you're working with somebody who's just doing flashcards to teach labels, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get there. The lessons have to progress. And if you're wondering where you can find all this, of course, you can find it in skills. And not only that, when you do it in skills, it separates all the different lessons, gives you teaching points, and it gives you charts so that you can see, my child's receptive language is here, their expressive language is here. Their verbal operants, they're manding on this term, but they're not tacting yet. You get a visual of it that's absolutely brilliant. Having a curriculum and knowing what the progression is really at least half the game. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels. So I put that out to you, and I hope that for the mom who had written in about how do we get from the labels to the conversation, that you get a better idea. We're out of time, but we're going to be back tomorrow with more to discuss with you, a lot of exciting things. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.